The Nevada sun burned white across the airfield, the kind of heat that shimmered like a mirage. It was just past 800 hours at Fort Avalon, a restricted defense testing facility buried deep in the desert, where nothing ever happened by accident. At the front gate, Staff Sergeant Cole Harris adjusted his cap and scanned the long stretch of road leading to the base. The desert wind tugged at the flag behind him, the hum of generators filling the silence. It was supposed to be another quiet morning, until a dust trail appeared on the horizon. A black SUV approached, sleek, government-issued, but without the usual convoy escort. It slowed to a stop before the checkpoint, the tinted window rolling down halfway. Inside sat a woman, mid-30s, calm eyes behind a pair of clear lenses. She wore no insignia, no rank patch, just a slim ID badge clipped to a plain gray jacket. "Morning," she said evenly. "Dr. Aria Vale. Clearance for access to Hangar 12. Cole frowned, glancing at her badge. Civilian. No code. No escort. No digital entry in his system. Hangar 12 was red level classified, above even his commanding officer's clearance. "Ma'am," he said, straightening, "this gate's restricted to internal personnel. You'll need an escort or a direct order. I don't have you on today's manifest." Her tone stayed polite. "That's because the manifest was written by someone who doesn't have the clearance to list me." Cole stiffened. He'd heard lines like that before. Contractors, consultants, and bureaucrats who thought they could bypass procedure. "Ma'am, I'm sure that sounds impressive, but unless your name matches an approved entry file, you're not crossing this line." Dr. Vale simply looked at him, then at the scanner beside the gate. "Would it make you more comfortable if I called my contact?" "You can call whoever you want, ma'am," Cole said firmly. "But until my screen turns green, nobody's entering this base." She sighed. Not frustrated, not scared. Just tired. Then she reached into her bag slowly, pulled out a slim encrypted tablet, and tapped twice. Cole's hand instinctively went to his sidearm. "Ma'am, I need you to keep your hands visible." She stopped, met his eyes, and said softly, "Sergeant, if I wanted to breach your security, I wouldn't be standing here explaining it." Something about her tone, steady, unshaken, made him hesitate, but his pride flared. This was his post, his rules. "Step out of the vehicle, ma'am." "Is that really necessary?" "It's procedure." The moment she opened the door, every nearby guard turned. The woman stepped into the heat, sunlight glinting off the silver streaks in her hair. She wasn't armed. She wasn't scared, and yet, something about her presence felt heavier than rank. Cole reached for his radio. "Gate control, this is Harris. I've got an unidentified civilian trying to access Hangar 12. No clearance in system. Requesting—" He didn't finish. Dr. Vale looked past him, toward the horizon, where faint dust clouds began to rise, multiple aircraft signatures inbound. She checked her watch, then murmured, "You might want to lower your weapon in the next 2 minutes." What's that supposed to mean? Before he could finish, the base sirens began to wail. Command frequency exploded with chatter. "Attention all personnel. Secure perimeter. Command choppers inbound. Repeat, 3 inbound birds. High priority landing." Cole blinked, lowering his radio. 3 command choppers? Out here? Dr. Vale folded her hands behind her back, expression unreadable. "Now," she said calmly. "May I proceed?" Cole stared at her, then back at the horizon, where 3 dark silhouettes cut through the sky. He didn't know it yet, but in exactly 90 seconds, those helicopters would land, and his entire world was about to change. The first helicopter broke through the desert haze with a thunder that rattled the guard tower windows. By the time the second and third appeared, every soldier on base had stopped what they were doing. Tools dropped, helmets turned, conversations froze mid-sentence. No one had seen that kind of landing outside of wartime. At the gate, Sergeant Cole Harris felt the vibration in his chest before the rotors even touched down. Dust whipped around him, swirling like smoke as the 3 UH-60 Blackhawks descended in perfect synchronization. Their black paint gleamed in the sunlight, marked with a single silver insignia, Joint Command Authority. Cole swallowed hard. That was 3-star territory. Control, he barked into his radio. Confirm visual on inbound birds. I need identification now. But the voice that answered wasn't Control. It was Colonel Price, his commanding officer. Sergeant Harris, step away from the vehicle. Immediately. Cole froze. He'd never heard the colonel sound like that. Controlled panic, each word sharp and deliberate. Sir, the civilian, do not engage, do not speak, and do not move. That's an order. Cole's grip on the radio slackened. Around him, other guards exchanged nervous glances. The woman, Dr. Vale, hadn't moved an inch. Her hands still rested calmly behind her back, her gaze fixed on the horizon. The first chopper touched down less than 50 meters away. The wind tore across the checkpoint, blasting sand and grit into everyone's faces. Cole shielded his eyes just in time to see 3 figures step out. 3 generals. The lead, a tall man with steel-gray hair, moved with the kind of authority that didn't need introduction. His flight jacket bore no name tag, just a single patch. Defense Joint Operations Command. The second wore a NATO insignia. The third, an older woman in full-dress uniform, carried a tablet with the defense seal etched in gold. They didn't pause to greet anyone. They didn't salute. They walked straight toward the gate. Colonel Price came running from the command building, hat nearly flying off his head. He skidded to a stop, saluted sharply, voice trembling. Generals. Sir, ma'am, we weren't informed of your arrival. The gray-haired general didn't even look at him. He pointed at Cole. That him? Price followed the finger, hesitating. Sir, he's just following, I asked. The general cut in. Is that the man who detained Dr. Arya Vale? Cole blinked. Detained? His stomach dropped as the woman's name hit him like a bullet. Dr. Vale. That was the same name written on classified tech updates. The one whispered in rumors between engineers and intel analysts. The mind behind something called Project Helios. A name only senior staff ever mentioned. The colonel didn't answer. He didn't have to. The general stepped forward, his expression unreadable. Sergeant Harris, you've made quite an impression. Cole snapped to attention. Sir, with respect, she presented invalid credentials. Standard procedure. Son, the NATO general interrupted. His accent clipped. If she had valid credentials, you wouldn't be cleared to see them. The wind roared between them, drowning out the silence that followed. Then, the woman, Dr. Vale, finally spoke. Gentlemen, he was doing his job. Don't fault him for it. Her tone was steady, almost protective. The generals paused, exchanging glances. The gray-haired one sighed. As you wish, Doctor. Then he turned to the colonel. Lock down the base. All operations paused. Hangar 12 is now under direct command authority. Colonel Price nodded, already barking orders into his comm. The entire base went still. Gates shut, lights flashing red, soldiers frozen mid-task. Cole stood motionless, disbelief pounding through him. Who was this woman that 3 generals followed her orders? Dr. Vale turned back toward him, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Next time, she said quietly. Trust comm over clearance. Then she walked past him without another word, while the 3 most powerful officers in the region fell into step behind her. The base looked like it had stopped breathing. Soldiers froze mid-step. Engineers abandoned consoles, and the endless hum of machinery seemed to quiet. Under the weight of command presence, 3 generals walking in. Formation was not something anyone ever saw, outside a war zone, and definitely not for a civilian scientist. The sound of their boots against the tarmac was the only rhythm in the desert silence. Dr. Arya. Vale walked ahead of them, unhurried, her gray jacket rippling slightly in the hot wind. There was no badge, no insignia, yet every senior officer they passed stiffened and saluted. Not her, but the way they followed her. Colonel Price tried to keep up, face slick with sweat. Sir, I assure you the gate protocols were strictly enforced. My men had no knowledge of the leading general, General Lawson, stopped dead in his tracks. His voice was low, calm, the kind of calm that only comes before impact. Colonel, do you have any idea who this woman is? Price hesitated, eyes darting toward Arya. Sir, I was told she's a civilian contractor attached to... Lawson's expression didn't change. He turned to the NATO general beside him. Colonel Price doesn't know. The NATO general let out a faint, humorless laugh. Of course he doesn't. Half the Pentagon doesn't. Price blinked. Sir? Dr. Vale stopped walking and turned to face them all. The desert sun caught the edge of her lenses, and for a heartbeat, even the wind seemed to pause. Enough, she said quietly. Let's not make a scene. But the generals didn't move. Lawson folded his arms. Doctor, with all due respect, they deserve to understand exactly why we're here. She sighed. Then make it quick. Lawson turned back to the colonel and his stunned soldiers. This woman, he said, voice carrying across the entire tarmac, is the chief architect of the Helios Defense Protocol, the artificial intelligence that controls orbital surveillance, early threat detection, and automated counterstrike authorization for the United States and Allied forces. A low murmur rippled through the crowd of staff and guards gathering nearby. Cole felt his mouth go dry. Lawson continued, That means every drone, every satellite, every missile that watches the skies answers to a system she built and maintains. He let the silence hang before adding, If she stops working, so does the entire grid. The colonel's face turned pale. He stammered, Sir, we didn't know. Dr. Vale cut him off gently. You weren't supposed to. The third general, the woman in dress uniform, stepped forward. Dr. Vale's security protocols are classified beyond Command Level 7. No clearance tags, no escorts, no records. If she arrives alone, you assume she belongs anywhere she walks. That's the rule. Cole's throat tightened. He'd just done the exact opposite. The NATO general glanced at him briefly. You may have stopped the most secure human being on the continent. That's either very brave or very foolish, Cole swallowed. Sir, I was following orders. Dr. Vale looked at him then. Not with anger, but with quiet respect. You did what the book said, she said softly, and that's exactly why I'm not angry. She turned away, walking toward Hangar 12 as the generals followed. Before stepping inside, she looked back over her shoulder, her voice carrying through the dust. But sometimes, Sergeant, the book doesn't know the war. Then the doors sealed behind her, locking with a hiss. By the time the wind settled, the story had already begun spreading through the base, that the woman at the gate wasn't just a scientist, but the brain behind every satellite eye in the sky. And somewhere deep inside Hangar 12, the Helios system flickered to life, as if acknowledging its creator had returned. Hangar 12 had always been a mystery, a sealed compound at the far end of the base, guarded by retinal scanners and code-locked gates. No one on Cole's security detail had ever stepped inside. Some said it housed stealth drones. Others swore it was a research site for next-generation energy weapons. No one guessed the truth. Through the tinted glass of the observation tower, Cole could see the generals following Dr. Vale into the hangar. The door sealed behind them with a heavy metallic thud. Red security lights turned blue. System override in progress. Inside, the temperature dropped. The space was massive, a cathedral of machines. A central platform glowed faintly beneath a suspended metal sphere the size of a shuttle pod, thousands of fiber-optic threads running from it like veins of light. Dr. Vale moved straight to the central console. Her hands flew across the holographic interface, screens coming alive around her, lines of encrypted code, heat signatures, and satellite imagery spiraling across displays. General Lawson stepped forward. Doctor, we received the transmission. Are you confirming a Helios alert? Arya nodded slightly. Yes, orbital sensors flagged a false positive strike sequence. Someone inside the grid tried to access launch authority. I traced it to this base. The room went still. Price, who had just entered behind them, blanched. You're saying someone here tried to trigger the defense network? I'm saying, she replied, eyes locked on the screen. Someone almost did. But Helios recognized the anomaly and locked itself. That's why I came. Lawson frowned. Could it have been external interference? No, Arya said firmly. It came from your communications relay. She tapped the console and the projection expanded, revealing a red marker over Fort Avalon's transmission tower. Someone either made a mistake, or they were testing me. Outside, Cole listened in disbelief through the security feed. Every word hit like a hammer. He remembered how she'd looked at him. Calm. Analytical. As if she were reading not just him, but the entire system around him. He'd thought she was bluffing. Now he realized she might have saved the base. Inside, the generals exchanged uneasy glances. The NATO representative spoke first. If this breach is verified, we'll have to lock down every node on the grid. That could trigger global protocols. Lawson nodded grimly. Do it. We can't risk a phantom strike being misread by Allied command. Arya's voice cut through the tension, quiet but commanding. Not yet. If we isolate now, we'll lose trace data. I need 30 minutes to confirm the origin signal. The generals hesitated. Then Lawson nodded. You have it. Dr. Vale leaned into her work, the air around her humming as Helios synchronized. The sphere overhead pulsed faintly with white light. To the untrained eye, it was code. To her, it was conversation. Come on, she whispered under her breath. Show me who touched you. The AI responded, a string of data cascading across the interface. A location blinked red. Arya froze. It wasn't a hacker, she said softly. It was an override attempt. From command control, Lawson's head snapped up. What? She turned slowly. Someone in your chain of command tried to access my system directly. The hangar went dead quiet. General Lawson's jaw tightened. That's impossible. Arya's eyes were cold. No, General. It's human. Outside the glass, Cole could only see shadows moving behind the frosted panels, but he could feel the shift. Whatever was happening inside hangar, 12 wasn't just a security error. It was a crack in the chain of command itself. And he'd stopped the one person who could fix it. The hangar's alarms blared, softly in the background, not loud enough to panic, just enough to warn everyone that something was very, very wrong. Inside, the air was thick. The generals stood like statues as Dr. Arya Vale pulled up the final trace. The data trail scrolled across the holographic wall, each packet of code marked with a timestamp, encryption ID, and origin key. At the very top was a signature code no one expected to see. AUTH, Avalon CMD Alpha 2, the base's own command authorization. General Lawson's face hardened. That's impossible. Alpha 2 authorization is locked to... He stopped mid-sentence. The silence that followed was the sound of realization. Arya finished it for him. You, and your deputy. A cold shock rippled through the room. The NATO liaison stepped forward, lowering his voice. Dr. Vale, are you suggesting that the general himself... I'm suggesting nothing, she said evenly. I'm showing you data. Someone using Alpha 2 access tried to trigger a Helios key cascade. If that command had gone through, the system would have initiated a retaliatory protocol. In plain English? Price blurted, voice cracking. Arya turned her eyes toward him. We'd be standing in a smoking crater right now. General Lawson's hands trembled slightly before he caught himself. Doctor, you're accusing me of treason? I'm accusing someone of trying to use your clearance. Whether that's you, your deputy, or someone above you. Above me? He snapped. Don't interrupt, she said sharply, and the room froze. Her tone wasn't disrespectful. It was authority. The kind that silences everyone without raising its volume. Arya continued. You've been running this base as a classified operations hub for 15 years, but Helios detected command interference from a ghost profile linked to this facility. That means someone has been shadowing your system. She walked closer, tapping the projection, revealing ghost data feeds from the previous week. Whoever it is, they've been rerouting secure comms through civilian channels. That's not a mistake. That's an attempt to hide. Outside, Sergeant Cole watched from the security corridor, earbuds in, listening to every word. Sweat trickled down his neck. The weight of what he'd done, drawing his weapon on her, stopping her from entering earlier, gnawed at him. He finally understood why 3 generals had come. This wasn't a briefing. It was containment. Inside, General Lawson's voice cracked. You're overstepping, Dr. Vale. She looked up, eyes glinting beneath the sterile white lights. No, General. I'm doing exactly what the President ordered me to do when he gave me operational command of Project Helios. The NATO officer blinked. "You have operational command?" She pressed her wrist terminal. The holographic badge projected above her hand. Presidential override. Director Aria Vale. Helios Command. The room erupted. Lawson stumbled back, color draining from his face. Price muttered, "Oh my God." And outside the glass, Cole froze, whispering under his breath. "Director?" The guard snapped to attention. Every soldier who'd doubted her, every officer who'd scoffed, suddenly realized the woman they'd stopped at the gate outranked everyone on the base. Aria turned off the projection and faced Lawson directly. "You've got a breach in your own command, General. Someone's been feeding test keys into Helios, waiting for a response. You think it's coincidence they chose this base? The one with direct satellite relay access? They wanted to see how long it would take before I noticed." Her voice softened, but the edge remained. "I noticed." She turned to the NATO rep. "Seal off the communications relay. No one leaves, no one transmits. Until we find who's behind this, Fort Avalon is under Helios lockdown." Lawson glared. "You don't have that authority." She stared back. "Watch me." Overhead, the Helios core flared, lights dimmed. Sirens rose, and outside the sealed hangar doors, soldiers looked up as the entire base shifted to red alert, command overridden by an unseen hand. A robotic voice echoed across the base loudspeakers. "Helios Control, Level Omega, base lockdown in effect." Cole dropped his headset. Heart hammering. She'd just taken control of the entire installation. The base lights flickered red as the Helios lockdown engaged. Doors sealed, engines powered down, and digital locks shimmered across every terminal. Even the sky above Fort Avalon dimmed slightly, the base's defense grid folding inward like a steel cocoon. Dr. Aria Vale stood in the center of the hangar, calm amid chaos. Around her, soldiers scrambled, screens blinked, and voices shouted into dead radios. Only her voice stayed steady. "Helios, initiate traceback protocol," she said softly. The suspended sphere above her pulsed with light. A hum rolled through the hangar floor, growing deeper, sharper. Within seconds, the holographic projection around her began to fill with cascading lines of data, tracking the unauthorized signal's path backward through dozens of servers, encryption tunnels and relay nodes. Then, a hit. The code flared crimson, locking onto a specific point. Aria's eyes narrowed. "Origin identified," she said. "Sub-level 3, Tactical Operations Center." General Lawson spun toward his deputy, Colonel Price. "Sub-level 3's been empty for months." Price swallowed hard. "It was until last week. Engineering reopened it for data maintenance." Aria turned toward them. "Show me!" They moved fast. Lawson, Price, 2 MPs, and Aria leading the charge. Cole, still outside, caught up with the escort team as the elevator doors slid shut. Nobody stopped him this time. The descent was silent, save for the low thrum of the Helios core echoing through the shaft. When the doors opened, the corridor was dark, emergency lights flickering like dying candles. They advanced in formation. The air smelled faintly of ozone and burnt circuitry. At the far end of the hall, a single door glowed faintly blue. The Tactical Operations Server Room. Aria motioned for the MPs to hold position, then stepped forward, keying in an override command. The lock hissed open. Inside, every screen was alive. Data poured like a storm across multiple monitors, encrypted streams rerouting through satellite channels, looping endlessly through the Helios firewall. Someone had built a shadow control system right under their feet. Cole's voice was low. "How long's this been running?" Aria's eyes swept the data flow. "Months, maybe longer." Then her gaze froze. One feed showed an active login, a live connection. "User, Price Auth." Her head snapped toward the colonel. "Step away from the console," she said sharply. Price's face went pale. "Wait, this isn't what it looks like," Lawson's voice thundered. "Price, what the hell did you do?" "I didn't start it," he shouted, shaking. "I just maintained it. They said it was authorized, a test run. They said it came from top clearance." "Who's they?" Aria demanded. Price hesitated. His voice dropped to a whisper. "Helios Control. External branch." Arya's face darkened. There is no external branch. The realization hit Lawson like a blow. You've been feeding a ghost channel. Price stumbled back. I swear I didn't know. They told me it was a simulation, but it was too late. The monitors flashed red. The system initiated a full purge. Data wipe in progress. Arya lunged forward, typing commands faster than the eye could follow. Helios, isolate core, override local purge. The AI responded instantly. Override accepted. The room filled with white light as the false control network disintegrated. Every line of code erased. Every stolen key burned out. When the glow faded, only one terminal remained alive, Helios itself. On its screen appeared a single line of text. Threat neutralized. Base secure. Lawson stared at her, disbelief and relief mixing on his face. You just saved this base. Arya nodded quietly. No, General. We just closed a hole someone's been trying to open for years. Cole finally spoke, voice low. You knew it had come here, didn't you? That's why you came. She gave him a small, tired smile. Fort Avalon was where Helios was born, and where it was almost destroyed. She looked up at the glowing core above. I wasn't going to let that happen again. Outside, as dawn broke over the desert horizon, the generals gathered for debrief. The crisis was over. The base would recover. But word would spread about the woman who had walked into a fortified base, been threatened by armed guards, and left as the one who saved it from its own command. Cole watched her helicopter lift off, sunlight glinting off the rotors. He turned to a fellow officer and murmured, half in awe, half in disbelief. Who was she, really? The officer replied quietly, she's not just a scientist. She's the architect of Helios, the one the Pentagon calls when the system itself goes dark. Cole watched the chopper fade into the sunrise, a small smile breaking across his face. Now he knew exactly why 3 generals had landed that day, and why they'd shut everything down.